13th, 2021 has been duly advertised in the Asbury Park Press, issue of May 20th, 2021. All municipal clerks of the township and the borough within the regional high school district have been duly notified, and the requirements posted of notices have been sent on May 18th, 2021. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to the executive agenda you wish to note tonight?
Yes, Mr. President. There's 3 additional items in addition to the items listed on the agenda that was printed prior to the meeting. The first is in box number 3. In addition to the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report, the board discussed a student residency matter. The second is in box number 6. Yes, number 6. The board discussed staff and student health issues. And then the last is in box number 8. The board discussed personnel items as noted on the agenda.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve items C1 through C6? Motion, Mrs. Ziegler? Second. Can I have a second, Mrs. Ziegler? Discussion?
Mr. Capiello.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Capiello?
Yes.
Mrs. Higley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Finelli?
Yes.
Mr. Weiss?
Yes.
Mr. Parisi?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from May 13th, 2021?
So moved.
Weiss.
Second.
Mr. Priest.
Mr. Parisi. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Capiello?
Yes.
Mrs. Higley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Finelli?
Yes.
Mr. Weiss?
Yes.
Mr. Parisi?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes. As a note, communications are on file in the office of the board secretary. Dr. Sampson, are you ready for your superintendent's report?
I sure am, Mr. Bruno. Thank you. I feel like I've been put in a timeout corner here with this desk. But I want to open up first and foremost with just a statement that the state of New Jersey is presently expecting a $4 billion surplus, yet they're still cutting school districts by a couple $100 million across the state. So I know that, and I'll speak to mask and executive orders and all that such, but I would remind our school community that under S2, we are still being cut $7 million this year in the middle of this pandemic, while billions of dollars flow through the state coffers in federal dollars and in surplus. And I think it's unconscionable that the state would elect to cut districts at this point in time. It's even further unconscionable that they would cut districts like ours, who open their doors for 5 days of schooling, well before most districts across the state. And so I just want to make sure that our community understands what that means for us. So while many districts are awash in CARES funding, because those allotments are divvied along free and reduced lines, lunch lines. Our funding from the federal dollars does not equate to the cut that we are receiving through S2, and so I'm going to continue to push on that. And obviously, we've advocated across the state. We've testified before the Assembly Ed Committee, before the Senate Ed Committee. We've written our legislators. We've joined in a lawsuit against the Department of Education. We have advocated with the SOS group, another group of about 100 districts across the state. So we've continued to work diligently to keep that at the front burner, because while many of our communities are upset over a lot of things related to COVID. At the end of the day, the Freehold Regional High School District is being cut $30 million over 7 years and over $100 million cumulatively in state aid. And so I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to remind our public of the status. And we've pushed our legislators hard on that. And we will continue to advocate. I'm not quite sure how the powers that be in the state can choose to cut some school districts while other districts within our geographic region are literally receiving in excess of $100 million. So this is insanity personified to me. Obviously, where do we stand with masks and the such? Today, it's been a topsy-turvy week. I think as the superintendent of schools, my position has been clear that the guidance from the state has been confusing, convoluted, and certainly not timely. And so we're all thrown for a bit of a loop earlier this week with the heat exemption. I do want to note, the heat exemption was there in the executive order. The entire mask debate can be lifted off 1, 2, 3 by the governor if he lifts Executive Order 175, which he's chosen not to lift, period. And that would end all of this. However, that is still in place, and I think it's important when a tweet comes out and it says there are exemptions, those exemptions were in place, and what they were specific to were physical education classes, music classes, and outdoor activities. We utilized the heat exemption in outdoor activities weeks ago. We made the decision here as a district that if you're in the spring months, it's hot enough not to wear masks outside. Why we were wearing masks outside at that point in time when you could be socially distant was absurd to us. All right, so we were already there. We put our communication out to the community earlier this week. Our buildings are hot, obviously, the non-air conditioned buildings. It's warm, it's uncomfortable. Any student that wants to sit at their desk and take their mask off certainly has that right. It was interesting, over the weekend, when the governor made the deal to lift the public health emergency, which I'm just a superintendent, but I'm not sure why we need to make a political deal to lift the public health emergency. However, that did occur. And some of those executive orders remained. So Executive Order 241, Executive Order 175, and this is confusing, right? Like, so we live in this world and we're confused. We're not included in that lifting. And one of the other interesting agreements in there over the weekend was that the CDC requirements of 3 feet of social distancing as long as you're masked, although New Jersey hasn't gotten there then. And so we dealt with that messaging on Monday. When we reached out to our local health officials, they had no idea what had happened. They didn't even know the announcement was made. They weren't even informed. So this is sort of the tinderbox in which we're trying to make decisions for children. So, we made the decision that we were going to relax the mask requirements as much as possible. Period. That's where we're at. Our graduations will be normal. Our proms have had 0 issues. Our summer programs are going to follow what we're doing now at the end of the year. We'll probably be removing the barriers, though, for the summer programs, I can tell you that. And there's a couple things that are easy fixes. So if we're going to return to a full day of school in September, there are a couple things that can easily happen to ensure that. First and foremost, we have over-quarantined thousands of kids this year. We had a meeting earlier this week, and I made the comment to some of the state officials that there should be shame in how many kids were quarantined this year unnecessarily. And all we need to do is look at other states to see where we are there. we cannot have lunch and still be expected to keep children 6 feet apart. That has to change. It has to go to the World Health Standard of 3 feet. These are easy fixes. These are easy changes. The difficulty here is that the road back, which is our guidance document that they continue to point to as our directional, has not been updated since August of last year. And so while other states have moved forward and have done so to the benefit of children, I would say, New Jersey has lagged behind. So we've continued to push this issue. I'm the president of the Monmouth County Superintendent's Roundtable. We put out a very public letter last week calling on the governor's office to address some of these issues. We had a meeting this week with a number of his staffers expressing the same sentiments, that there are some very, very easy fixes that can occur in order to ensure a full day of school in the fall. I think everybody was in agreement across the county that it was incredibly premature to be expecting masks to be utilized in the fall. And I keep using the same example that I'll use in the language in the letters that I put out and the statements that I made. You know, we actually went through part of this year where two children would wrestle each other for 6 minutes and then not be allowed to shake hands. It's the definition of absurdity. And we need a clearer path for September. I think everybody's in agreement with that. I think this district is in agreement with that. We've relaxed the mask requirements at this point in time. We feel good about where we were all year as a school district. You know, we have 10,600 students, 1,200 staff members, community of 20,000 plus, 0 issues of in-school transmission, 0 COVID-related issues in our schools, and we feel good about that. And so my expectation as the superintendent of schools is that the fall is going to be a normal school day. A full lunch, we're not going to be wearing masks, and that's where we're going to be. I can't, you know, I don't know what's going to happen over the summer, and I don't know where the political winds will blow, because somewhere along the lines this really became politicized in really difficult ways. We're going to manage as best we can, but we need, the guidance that we've asked for is simple, right? And all of this drama that has played out over the state of New Jersey over the past week or so could have easily been avoided. It's unfortunate, but that's where we are as it relates to masks. A couple other things, you know, the CARES money is coming in, and you know, the federal dollars that are flowing through this. The only difficult component to it is it doesn't take into any consideration whether a building was open or closed. And it is a simple fact that if your building remained closed, you saved money during this. So while we were closed from March to June last year as a school system, we realized almost $5 million in savings. That actually offset our state aid reduction, because we were cut last year as well, right? And we're cut again this year, and we're going to be cut another $7 million next year. The easy thing to do would have been to stay closed, to close our budget hole. It wasn't the right thing to do by children. The federal dollars, they make no, it matters not whether you're closed, open, hybrid, it doesn't matter. It's done along free and reduced lunch lines. And one of the things we've advocated for from the state is where they do have some flexibility in those dollars to take a look at some of the real cost absorbed by districts that opened their doors. We paid a tremendous amount more in substitute cost. We paid a lot more in the infrastructure cost to our classrooms to keep them safe. Those are real costs. And I'm hoping that with the federal dollars with the surplus that seems to be apparent, that the powers that be will make some decisions that will actually reward schools who open their doors for children and absorb those costs rather than remaining closed. And I'm not disparaging anyone who remained closed. There's a number of factors that probably resulted in that. Our facilities, we were lucky. We went through an energy savings improvement plan in 2012, 2013, and we reworked our entire HVAC system. Now, we didn't have COVID in mind at the time, certainly, but we benefited from it in real time when that occurred. So next year, we will launch a one-to-one initiative. One thing that we do anticipate and we have to be prepared for is that there may be short-term shutdowns in the future, that there may be subsequent issues where schools are remote for short periods of time. We also digitalized, basically most of our standard operating procedures this year, and we're not moving out of there anytime soon. I don't think the general public also realizes when folks were forced home, somewhere around 35% of our students we loaned devices to. That's a huge number. And so we want to make sure that everybody has a device, that it's connected to our network, and we've looked very closely at what the K-8s have done in terms of, what any cost associated with those devices were, and we're adjusting appropriately as we go. We're looking toward again, we always use our summer programs to iterate and to really see what it might look like in the fall. And so I think that we're excited. We're going to have somewhere around 1,500 students in our buildings all summer long. And I think that they are going to have a fundamentally different experience than what it looked like at the start of the year. And it's going to look very much like a normal school year as we head to the fall. And that's my report, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. So I think I heard this, that virtual is not an option.
The governor said virtual will not be an option next year. One of the areas that we're waiting for the specific regs that follow that and the guidance that follows that, because there have been stating that and then seeing what carve-outs might actually exist may impact our work. And so when we're looking at our summer schedules right now, one of the things that we're looking at from an administrative capacity is making sure in mid to late August that we have the human capacity to actually make change, that people are available, that we're not on vacation at those points in time. Because if we learned anything last summer, it's that the guidance is going to come late, it's going to be unexpected, and that we may have to shift before the start of the school year. And so we've already planned appropriately for the summer. As far as schedules go, we're ready with whatever is thrown at us. We had 3 different schedules ready to go this past September, depending on what it looked like. Obviously, first and foremost is a regular, normal day schedule. And then we got Plan B and we have Plan C, and we're ready to execute those plans, and they're done. I'm hoping that we don't have to do any of that.
Looks like graduation in 2 weeks from tonight.
Graduation will be completely normal.
Yeah, good. Thank you. We have board reports tonight, and we have finance and curriculum, and we have a full house tonight for curriculum. Mr. Parisi and Mrs. Hickman is there, and Debbie Finelli is there, and Mike Messenger, and Dr. Howell, Dr. Hazel, and Weiss. We had a full house, great discussion, and Mrs. Higley will do the report.
Thank you. First of all, there's 4 major topics. The first was learning our successes and lessons from 2021 as we're planning for the 21-22 school year. Meetings, and we had feedback from teachers, parents, staff. What should be continued? What did work that we wanted to continue with, even though we moved next year, especially the teacher collaboration. It was probably the best time for teachers that really they worked together. It wasn't an isolated teacher in their classroom, but they really had to collaborate on what we can do to continue that, how we can continue working some type of common plan. This year they had 45 minutes after school. We won't have that when we go back to a full day, but still finding some time when they'll be able to continue that. One way we're going to do it is department meetings across the district will be on the same day. So all the social studies departments in the district meeting will be the same day, so they can interface with each other and still collaborate. And I think that's really a great step forward. The other thing is working on relationships. How are we going to reconnect with those students that have not attended school for over a year? How are we going to help with their transition? And they're working on that. Also, technology. What can you say? We have been forced everyone to be able to really use technology and infuse it correctly into the curriculum. We're going to continue that by going one-to-one. And I just think that the efficacy and the increased collaboration has really helped technology become really an asset in education. Also, then we went into the different curriculums that are going to be rewritten. And during the next school year, we're going to be rewriting all the health curriculums, 9 through 12, and phys ed. Health will be done during the summer, their curriculums. The phys ed curriculums will be done during the school year. Spanish 1 through 4 will be rewritten, and during the summer, Italian 1 through 4 will be rewritten over the school year. Also AP Physics, since that has been changed by the College Board, we need to upgrade AP Physics 1, 2, and C. And magnet programs. They also have to be updated. The culinary food, IB, the theory of knowledge, the physics HL course, and business administration, the business law and ethics. At the same time, after we introduce a new curriculum, we take a year for the teachers to work before we finalize it and said what worked, what didn't work. Do we have to do something out of sequence? So we'll continue to look at the implementation this year of the health, the Spanish, Algebra 1, which was done last year, but isn't really being implemented to this year, and English 1 through 4. And we'll continue to look at some of the ones that should have been looked at this year, but since we weren't in full time, we're going to continue before we finally approve those curriculums with geometry, honors geometry, algebra 2, pre-calculus, honor calc, financial literacy, business management, business law, the whole gamut of the required U.S. history courses and world history, and honors, anatomy, physiology, forensic science, and marine. So we're continuing with those. Now, the third one was the New Jersey legislation and New Jersey DOE mandates. In 2019, New Jersey mandated that the history of disabled and LGBT persons be included in curriculum. This is being infused through social studies. It's not replacing social studies. It's just something that you infuse and you mention and is highlighted when people from different categories and what they've contributed to the United States, whether through the economy, politics, and society, and it's done within the curriculum. Also, diversity and inclusion now has to be included this year. Again, it's going to be infused through the curricula, not an additional replacement of. We've done this in the past when we did career education, and you infuse careers in all of it. But this is done mostly through the social studies department and the health, and that will be addressed in when we're rewriting those curriculums. And last, the summer academies updates. I'm very excited about that. We're continuing to have them. Right now, we have 150 students already signed for original credit. We have 8 students right now for credit recovery. Since the school year isn't over, we don't know how many more additional will be signed up. We have 216 already registered for AP Bridge. We have 45 students already in the Algebra 1 Bridge program. Those are for the students who took geometry as a freshman and now will take Algebra 1 as a sophomore. So these are for rising 10th graders. And we have 45 people registered to do that in person. Those are all going to be done at Colts Neck High School. We also have 180 students already registered for our ESY program at Colts Neck. The Title I Jumpstart program for Freehold Borough and Freehold Township students will be held in July on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And the College Jumpstart program, which is August 3rd to 5th. We already have 150 students registered, and there already is a waiting list. There was a $100 fee for that, and we've already at capacity with a waiting list for that program. So all of our summer programs are off. And again, they're going to be done some in person mostly, and it's great that we're able to move back and forth. So thank you to the curriculum department. They did a great job throughout this whole thing, keeping the curriculums up and running for the parents and knowing what's going on.
Thank you, Mrs. Ziegler. Next report is finance. They were met on Monday night in person, I believe, right? Is that in person? Zoom? All right, so Mr. Moses, Mr. Gracie, Mr. Messenger were at that meeting on Monday night, and Mr. Messenger is going to do the report tonight.
Okay, thank you. There is going to be some overlap with what Dr. Sampson had said before, so I'll try to avoid as much as possible, but there was essentially two topics, and the first one was all about federal aid. So ESSER stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, and since the pandemic has started, Freehold Regional's gotten $8.7 million from the federal government, and it's been broken up into 3 buckets. There was ESSER Fund, there was ESSER 2 Fund, and then there was the ARP Act, which is the American Rescue Plan. But there's limitations at what we could spend the money on. For instance, some of this $8.7 million had to be spent on addressing the digital divide. And then if we move on to ESSER 2, there was money that had to be spent on learning acceleration and some mental health provisions for students since we were going through a pandemic. And then if we wrap it up with the last bucket, which was the American Rescue Plan, we got $4.9 million from that, and we discussed what Dr. Sampson had said earlier, our aid versus other districts that are significantly smaller than us, but got insane amounts of money. And again, we talked about S2, the $30 million cut, and the interesting thing is that in fiscal year 22, we're getting $4.9 million from the American Rescue Plan, but meanwhile, if we look at S2, we're getting cut $6.7 million, so we're still going to be on the downside after the trillions of dollars that Washington claims that education's getting. The second topic after getting a description about the federal aid was the Chromebooks, and obviously next year we're going to one-to-one, so we got the details on the rollout, the different insurance options that are being considered, how the repairs are going to go when students break the Chromebooks, how it's going to impact the different years. For instance, some students may be keeping them forever, others may have to return it at the end of the year. These are all details that are being worked on and will come out before next school year. And then just to wrap it up, and this is sort of getting back to the federal aid, these federal regulations require that this board approves a plan for the safe return to in-person instruction, which has to be submitted to the NJDOE and posted on our website by June 24th. And you will see there is a resolution on the agenda tonight to approve this return to school plan. And that's it, Mr. President.
Thank you. Good job, both of you. Okay, we're going to go along with Mr. Boyce. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Yes, there are. There was a yellow paper available up at the front earlier, and I'll go through that, and there's also one additional one. So 4 changes altogether. 2 of them are amendments of existing resolutions. The other 2 are brand new resolutions. So let me walk through this. Amendment to H3, approval of appointment, is to add Christina Donovan, Administrative Supervisor of Student Services, at $130,817, effective date July 1, 21, upon availability. For H8, approval of summer transportation drivers for extended school year programs, the board should add the name Susan Nomikos to the list that exists in the agenda. And in addition, a new resolution, H18, your agenda should end at page 17 in that section. And this is approval of rescission. And I'll read it into the record. Be it resolved that the Freehold Regional High School District Board of Education approves the following rescission as recommended by the Superintendent of Schools. Name Sarah Miller, Board Agenda April 29, 2021. The previous action was an appointment for LTS Social Studies teacher at Colts Neck High School. The other additional resolution to the agenda will fall under educational programs. So new item K21, and it reads, motion to remove student ID number 2310394 for lack of residency in the district. So that's an addition to the agenda. And that's all I have.
21, right?
Yes, K21.
Public participation tonight. We have 3 people. Mr. Wilbur. Mr. Wilbur? Hi. Good. Yeah, come right up here. That mic is on.
Hello. Dr. Sampson, I really appreciate everything you said about the schools. And I'd like to preface what I'm about to say by saying this is not an indictment against any specific group or individual, but instead an indictment on the state and the system. My name is Rob Wilbur. I'm 18 years old and I'm a senior at Howell High School. Since my freshman year, I was told that my senior year would be one of the greatest years of my life. The administration of my school did a fantastic job, particularly my principal, Mr. Broderman, who's here tonight. And I am thankful for their efforts, and I know this was out of their control. But I can speak for every single high school senior in the Freehold Regional High School District and New Jersey when I say we were totally robbed of that year of greatness. In fact, I could argue this was the worst year of my entire life. It was stolen from us, and for what? A worldwide pandemic with a whopping fatality rate for children aged 10 at 0.002%, and for 25-year-olds, 0.01%. Don't get me wrong, all life is precious and protecting public health is a good idea, but at what cost? It's been a hard year, and I'm sorry if I seem a little bitter, but I think I deserve to be. Real, genuine human connection is the most important thing in this life. It's more important than money, fame, or power. In keeping us apart, the damage was done. Compared with 2019, kids 12 to 17 saw a 31% increase in mental health-related emergency room visits in 2020. And that's straight from the CDC. We are the 21st century lost generation. Maybe I'm annoyed because we didn't get that homecoming dance, or football games, or concerts, or lunchtime with friends. That's what hurts the most. And I'm really tired of people saying that what we got was better than nothing, when it wasn't nearly enough. Furthermore, when much of the student population returned to school in person 5 days a week for the 4th morning period, plexiglass shields were attached to each desk in every classroom. So now, up until 2 days ago, I should add, we were 6 feet apart with masks on, with plexiglass, which offers absolutely no protection while only serving as a distraction. I can guarantee if you were a senior in high school, you wouldn't like it. Masks and the rest of the restrictions have mostly stayed in place throughout schools, even after the statewide mandates have been lifted. Of course, our governor's May 28th executive order did not include schools, contrary to scientific data. Our age group, COVID's lowest risk demographic, are the last to have our masks removed. Not to mention every teacher has had the opportunity to be vaccinated. Can someone please explain that to me? I'm willing to guess that was to appease the teachers' unions. I love all my teachers, by the way, just not the unions. New Jersey's methods of addressing these unprecedented circumstances have failed, and the kids have suffered. I also heard Governor Murphy say that there is a good possibility children will be subject to restrictions next school year in September, which you alluded to. How can you even consider something like that, knowing the real impact on these kids? What happened to me and my friends should never happen to anyone again. I can vote in the next election, and when I do, I'm certainly not going to put a check mark next to Phil Murphy's name. It's amazing to me how few people have the guts to stand up for the proper treatment of children. Frankly, the silence has to stop. I wish the state would put kids first instead of favoring political agendas. And I hope maybe, this is unrealistic, but just, humor me. You could drop all of the restrictions for the last week of my high school career, or how about just one day? Just one completely normal, how it used to be day. I have a funny feeling we'd all survive. Thank you.
Rob, so thank you. Appreciate you coming up there, and that was very articulate. And I think anyone who's been a part of this school district and has seen my frustration with some of the things and the way they've been dealt with. I understand your frustration for my own children, a sophomore, an 8th grader, a 6th grader, and a 4th grader. My 4th grader is severely dyslexic, can't even follow the screen, let alone understand what's happening if it's not put in the chat room because she's processing it. Lost half of her 4th grade year, basically, as a result of that. Watch my own kids be masked, watch my own kids be isolated from their peer group, and I don't have any answers from the sense of why, the decision-making process here. We have advocated strenuously in this district for clarity, for rules that made sense. We have called out rules that did not. I sat to the board and talked about the plexiglass barriers myself, some of these things that are there. So, we understand your frustration. I think at the last board meeting, I believe it was the last board meeting, I said that I felt that a number of folks were going to look back and be ashamed at how some of our children were treated at this time. And I believe that. I believe that there's a balance of safety, though. I want to be clear about that as well. I do believe that we over-quarantine kids. I do believe that we have been very slow in this state to make adjustments that approximate the actual case rate and what that looks like. I actually challenge some of the ways in which we even determine the numbers in this state. But I do know that the people in this school district worked very diligently to try and provide our students as normal an experience as possible. And you're a product of Howell High School, and you just got up and represented yourself very, very well. And I think that, you, students like yourself, are the best testament to our school district, right? You get up and you advocate for yourself and you make your points. There's a lot of dissension in how this has been addressed from a school level, from a state level, and across the nation, obviously. This has been a really divisive year on a whole lot of fronts. And there's an opportunity now, to your point about the fall. We're looking at the fall, and I think that there's enough of a coalescence of people asking for some real common sense decisions, and there's plenty of time to do that. I'm going to continue to call out the ridiculousness when I see it. I do think schools are placed in a very difficult position. When the executive orders are not lifted, there are a lot of things that can be held over a school system's head as well. And so you run the gamut of risk versus civil disobedience and compliance, right? And that from an organizational standpoint, that's a very different perspective to be in than an individual out there advocating for what appear to be some things that aren't working, right? So I've said over and over again in these board meetings that our expectation is a regular school year next year, period. We're moving toward that. I think we've started to move toward that now. I think this district has been aggressive in taking advantage of the opportunities that we can now, and we're going to continue to do that in the summer programs, and I think that that will bear fruit for this district come fall. As far as where we've been, I see it, I live it every day with my own children, so I understand, what has not happened, my own daughter sat on the back of a bus 20 feet away from another student who was COVID positive and was quarantined for 10 days. And she was never even within 20 feet of the person. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing that ever happened. I wrote letters to my own school system. I said, this is when the implementation of some of these expectations goes south, right? I appreciate your comments. They're not on deaf ears here. We're listening to you. We're listening to our students here. And we're certainly listening to our community members.
Thank you.
Robert, that was excellent. I was waiting for a student to show up in the last 10 months. I'm happy you came because I'm tired of hearing the politicians also, and to hear it from someone like you who have gone through it, thank you. I wish you would send that to the State House and to our State Assembly people, that letter. It was moving and poignant. We made it to the June board meeting. We went through a whole school year. A lot of people worked very hard. And that letter is just a nice testimony to what you have gone through. So good luck with everything. And as we said, we're going to have a normal graduation as possible. But, to you that lost a year, doesn't mean much. But so enjoy that, okay? And good luck. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Bruno, can I say something real quick?
Yes, sure.
Like what Dr. Sampson said and what Mr. Bruno said, I want to thank, I don't know if you know this, but Peter and I both represent Howell. So it means a lot to me that you took the time tonight to drive up from Howell to express yourself so eloquently. And I just want to say that I appreciated your words, and I understand the frustration and where you're coming from. And there's nothing that we can do here tonight that are going to give you back some of the memories that you feel that you weren't able to have this school year. But I do hope that whatever your plans are in the coming years, that you keep in touch with your friends and try to do everything you can to enjoy some of the memories that you wanted to have this year, and trust that in college and whatever you do, you're going to make many memories that you will take with you for the rest of your life.
Thank you. Mrs. Wallace from Manalapan. Mrs. Wallace, come on up.
Well, I have to say, it's going to be hard to follow that one, having tears, okay? Just sitting here tonight in general, listening to everyone speak, especially you, Dr. Sampson, I could tell that you are passionate, I could tell that you do care, and I could tell that you are really trying to do the best for the students. So I do have a prepared speech here. It might be a little sharp, so I'm going to apologize ahead of time, because I was just sitting here tonight listening to you. I can tell that you are very compassionate and you really do care about the students. So I will continue. So my name is Dr. Serena Wallace, and I currently have a freshman at Manalapan High School and also a sophomore at Freehold Township High School. My eldest son graduated last year from Manalapan, and he is attending Southern Methodist University in Texas and is doing extremely well. I'm here tonight representing parents and students regarding the removal of any mask mandate, regardless of excessive heat, air conditioning rooms, and making masks a parental and a student choice. Dr. Sampson, on May 26th, you tweeted, "Can't follow science when it's applied to bars, restaurants, sporting events, then to schools." Students were allowed to wrestle one another, but not shake hands this year. And you said, think about that. Time before September to get it right. We certainly owe that to our kids. Well, Dr. Sampson, I agree with you 100% with what you shared in your tweet. And I shared this with parents and students who attend Freehold Regional High School District. We praise you acknowledging the lack of science that was being applied to our students. You can only imagine our surprise to your response when Murphy gave you the opportunity to follow through with how science is applied. In my opinion, in my children's opinion, and many people that I know, we do feel that you dropped the ball on this one. Your response was, during excessive heat, buildings without air conditioning, students may remove their face coverings when seated behind the plexiglass. In the hallways, transitioning through classrooms, face coverings must be worn. In air-conditioned rooms and buildings, face coverings need to be worn. On buses, face coverings don't need to be worn. Dr. Sampson, parents and students just can't follow the science in your decision. Is COVID that smart? It knows when it's hot out, what building and rooms are air conditioned, where the hallways are. When you are on a bus or when you are playing an indoor sport and doesn't know how to stay behind a plexiglass. We are trying to appease who? Other parents? The NGA? Who are we trying to appease here? Please remove the mask. It should at least be an option for parents and students to remove their mask. We are in charge of our health. The government's not in charge of my health. The board members are not in charge of my health. The teachers are not in charge of my health. Anyone who is fearful of COVID has already taken the vaccine or takes their own safety measures. There's virtually no deaths of children caused by COVID. If you want the stats in the literature, I'll be more than happy to email to you and all the board members. There is no legitimate scientific nor medical reason for school-age kids to wear a mask in school. There is mounting evidence that it causes great harm, potential long-term damage to our children. Now, before any of you roll your eyes or I'm going to hear it says conspiracy theory or but the CDC says, I would like to politely remind you that just because CDC or CNN or the New York Times or King Murphy says something does not make it automatically true or safe. In fact, there has been countless historical instances of state medical authority or official decrees being not only wrong, but tragically wrong and extremely harmful. And I should not have to remind you how many times the media has been deadly wrong about the important issues on COVID in the last year. Since it is June, the temperature in the schools will be fluctuating. Regardless of the excessive heat, we do have students in school. We also have to keep that in mind when September rolls around. We have nice heat waves in September and October. With kids being masked and the so-called air-conditioned rooms and buildings, I can assure you, with my children's own experience in those rooms, the temperatures do fluctuate. Body heat rises along with the temperature in the room. Masking our children is causing headaches, tiredness, difficulty breathing, strep throat, congestion, which my daughter had last week, and I kept her home from school. Also anxiety, and that is just to name a few. It restricts breathing, causes increase in CO2 rates, and is a petri dish of microbes. So are we really concerned about our kids' health? Are you even aware of that? I am a daughter of an HVAC technician, and I'm well aware that air conditioning units in large buildings like schools are using the unit to the full capacity. When this happens, you cannot measure temperature correctly in the classrooms. I am aware that there's only 5 regular class days left and 4 exam days left in this school. But do you want an ambulance showing up to one of your schools because we didn't protect our children, the students? In America, we have freedom of choice. The choice should start now. Tomorrow, the kids should be mask-free, optional. If they choose to, they will. People who want to wear masks will continue to do so. They will wear their masks. The ones don't, they should have the choice. We are in charge of our health. Dr. Sampson, please join the multitude of superintendents who are making masks optional in the state of New Jersey. Like you said, Dr. Sampson, time before September to get it right. We certainly owe that to our kids. I thank you for your time, and I pray that you do make the right decision. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Wallace. You know, I'm not here to appease anybody, be it politician, community member, or anyone. You know, I'm here to make the best decisions for children, and I take that role really, really seriously. I think if you ask anyone in the rooms over the past couple of days if they had the option to take their mask off or not, they would tell you they did, and that they could. And we took a very strong stance on heat from this point forward, and my letter said from June 8th on. And we also made exceptions in some of those rooms that air conditioned or not, because the temperatures do fluctuate. I agree with you 100%. At the end of the day, to simply say mask optional in writing when the EO still exists is I'm not sure if that's the way. There's different ways to skin a cat. And I would just ask you to ask around about what is or is not occurring within our buildings and what children are or are not doing, because I think we've been incredibly flexible since that flexibility was granted, and I think that we are. Well, I agree with you 100% about September. We're trying. The reason I sent that tweet was to bring some attention to the ridiculousness of some of the contradictions in what we were being asked to do, and to get back to normal, period, for September, and to light a fire a little bit. And I think that went a little viral, right? I think that touched a nerve with people. And we do have time to get it right, and I agree with you 100%, and I think that we're going to continue to be very, very flexible with what that looks like, especially the other thing that people are not talking about at the high school level. Children also have access to the vaccine. That's a very different place from the K-8s to the high school. So every single body in the building in our schools has access to the vaccine, and that's also fundamentally different as well. And we've been making that point to the state, saying that you should be treating high schools very, very differently, period, because every single person there has that access.
Dr. Wallace?
Yes.
I can only speak for myself, but there's probably a lot of us who agree with what you wrote tonight. I don't know what your children are finding in our schools. I'm assuming that our principals are letting the children have their masks off. You know, so I don't know where your kids are, Freehold Township and in Alvin? No. So, but I know at some of the schools, it is, without using the word optional, which is the word that you're using in your essay, it is pretty optional. So I don't know your child's experience.
That's my issue then, because each teacher is making their own decisions if they are in an air conditioned class. So if it's so-called, maybe enclosed or unwritten rule optional, it really isn't then, because the students who are in the air conditioned class, if that teacher feels uncomfortable, they're going to say no, not caring if the student is not feeling comfortable. While they're walking through hallways in the heat, when they're trying to take a drink of water, they're getting yelled at.
I agree, it's not optional. Okay, one second. Excuse me, sir. It's not open back and forth. You don't mind, just if we can just respect the people coming up. Sir, 1 second. Thank you. I just would point out, Mr. Brewer, just one thing, and I do think that Ms. Wallace made very good salient points. I just would point out, and just be remiss, you know, a lot of what you were saying, a lot of what you were directing, you're directing at the wrong people. A lot of this is decisions that is made by people a level above who give directives and make edicts, and we are as frustrated as you are. And we don't have that control, we don't have that ability. You do. I would encourage you to pass along, much as like Mr. Bruno had said, to the student who spoke so eloquently at the beginning, to pass that along to local legislators, because they're starting to pay attention, because they're starting to realize what's going on. And the disingenuousness of the announcement on Monday sent the entire state into chaos. So I just wanted to point that out. Where we is supportive, the board as a whole is supportive, the administration is supportive, but a lot of it is out of their hands. And it's out of their hands because of the edicts and the executive orders that have come down, which, like it or not, whether we like it or not, this board, this district, these administrators are bound by. They have to follow. So it's the only thing I just wanted to point out without it going into a back and forth, Ms. Wallace. We do have other people that did sign up. Mr. Bruno, I think there was another name.
Dr. Spencer, Dr.
Yes.
Wallace, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Wallace. I didn't mean any disrespect. I'm sorry.
We do have one more person who wants to speak. Michelle Spencer from Freehold. Michelle?
Thank you. I'm going in a slightly different direction here. I want to speak on one of the people that you're going to be going on for hire later on tonight. I work currently for David Fusco, and I just want to commend you guys on the tremendous decision that you made. In 22 years of teaching, he is the best administrator that I have ever worked with. He's going to be deeply missed at my school, but I'm glad that at least the district that I live in will be acquiring him. He's a tremendous asset, and I just wanted to, like I said, let you know from personal experience, he is supportive, he backs all of his teachers, and he is just a tremendous person. So kudos to you guys. And Colts Neck Baseball won their game, so can I leave early tomorrow? No, but seriously, he's just a tremendous gentleman, so good job, and good luck to you, David, in the new district. You will be terribly missed in our district.
Take the day off.
It's very kind.
That's never happened before. Thank you.
Mr. Bruno, I think Dr. Wallace had another comment that you wanted to make. I don't know if you want to invite her back up to say something.
Come on up, Dr. Wallace. I'm sorry, lady.
Okay. I do appreciate everything you guys are doing, so don't get me wrong on that. And like you said, it goes to a higher level. I am very aware it goes to a higher level. I was in Trenton on Thursday. I'm not sure all of you are aware that the bill that does pass on this past Thursday gave Murphy all the power he needs. He bypassed the committee. He did not have a public hearing. He did not listen to the people. The committee did not listen to the people. So how many of you sitting here right now were following that? How many of you were on that phone calling? How many of you were doing the emails? Because if you care about our children, you should be very involved in the state government and looking at the bills. We have our local, and then we have the state. So we have to be very involved. Okay? Freehold Township, let me tell you, he didn't vote. This district did not vote on that bill. They abstained from voting. So when you're at the polls and you're voting, don't look at, oh, how does it support the union? Maybe look at how are they treating the children. That would be greatly appreciated. Now, too, Murphy did make this new statement today, stating, oh, don't get used to these masks. But he is not doing anything to any of the schools right now that remove the mask mandate for the remainder of the year, making it optional. So we do have that choice. We do have the ability to do it. Maybe giving Robert the opportunity for the last 5 days in school and the 4 days taking an exam to not have a mask. That is up to you, because Murphy's not doing anything. He just said, hey, guess what? It may happen again in September, because he knows that already, because he has the ability to do it. Because how many of us here tonight were making those phone calls? How many of us here tonight were making the emails? How many of you are going to be up there and fighting for the children and not worry about the political party that we may belong to? That should be set aside. We should be looking at the values, what people are standing for, and voting on that. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. We're going to go into H now. We're going to have a motion to approve H1 through H18.
So moved.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Second. That was Mr. Weiss and Mrs. Higley, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Capiello? Yes. Mrs. Higley?
Yes, but I abstained on Colleen Canto, H1, and Adam Angelosi, H1, Chris Provo, H6, Brian Provo, H15, and Michael Mendez, H11.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinelli?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Parisi?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes, I abstained from Jeanette Bruno, H13. Educational Programs and Administration, which is K, Educational Programs and Administration. May I have a motion to take...
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
I think you're on IJ.
Yeah, IJ.
Okay, IJ.
Yeah.
I just skipped right over Programs and Operations. I'm sorry about that. Okay, IJ, Programs and Operations, Building, Transportation, and Physical Plant. That is IJ. May I have a motion to approve IJ through J4? Motion, please.
I1, just to clarify.
Okay, I1. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Parisi. Discussion?
The original motion, I'm sorry.
Was Mrs. Higley?
No, Kathy.
Mrs.
Capiello.
Capiello.
Well, I get you two confused. And then Mr. Parisi was second.
Gotcha.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Capiello? Yes. Mrs. Higley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Weiss?
Yes.
Mr. Parisi?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes. So now I'm going to do KL, Educational Program and Administration. Can I have a motion to approve K1 through L2?
Motion.
Mrs. Higley?
Mrs. Higley? Second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Moses. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Capiello? Yes. Mrs. Higley?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Weiss?
Yes.
Mr. Parisi?
Yes, and I abstain on K18.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes. Old business?
Yeah, I have old business. I guess it's old, maybe it's current. I just want to thank Mary Beth already for all the hard work she put into her program and all the students she's helped over all these years. She is going to be sorely missed, and I wish her the best in her retirement.
And I'd like to congratulate Dr. Angelosi for his appointment as superintendent at the Point Barrow School District. It was a great colleague when I worked with him, and I know he's going to be a great superintendent, and our loss is their gain.
That's right. Good luck.
Good luck.
Any more old business? New business?
Yes, I have something. Since our last meeting, unfortunately, 2 long-term educators from Marlborough High School passed away. The first one was Hearts and Boyce. and the second one was Alexander Sinclair. And I just wanted to say a couple of words about Mr. Sinclair because ironically we're in Marlborough High School's auditorium, and he was in charge of the drama club and the musicals and the plays for many years, including back when I was here, and some of the greatest times of my life happened in this auditorium. And a lot of it was due to Mr. Sinclair's tutelage and leadership of the drama and musical productions. So I just wanted to pass along my sympathies to the families of both Mr. Sinclair and Mr. Boyce, who I both had when I was a student here.
I have a number of items, Mr. Bruno. So we have a number of appointments that were made this evening, and so Liz stole my thunder a little bit. Adam, Dr. Angelosi, I want to congratulate you on being named Sup of Point Borough. I think you'd be a terrific fit for that community. I think you're well prepared to be an excellent superintendent. You've been an excellent building principal for a decade. Folks don't understand how long of a run as you get it, but 10 years as a high school principal is a long run, so congratulations. I know that you'll do great things there and represent us moving forward. I want to congratulate a number of people this evening, though. I'll start with Mike Dillon, who will be named the new principal of Manalapan High School. So Mike, for folks who don't know, Mike was an assistant principal at Manalapan High School for several years. He spent the past several years as the director of guidance and operations in the central administration. And we think that Mike obviously knows the Manalapan community well, is well established there, is going to do a terrific job, so congrats, Mike. I want to also introduce Mike Mendez. Mike Mendez is currently an assistant principal at Freehold Township High School, but he will be succeeding Mr. Dillon as the director of guidance and operations in the district. Mike has a ton of experience. He's been a high school principal at New Egypt for several years. He's been with us for a couple of years at Freehold Township, has done an excellent job. And Mike, I know you'll be excellent in your new role, so congratulations. Mr. Rodney Taylor will be named the new assistant principal at Freehold Township High School. Rodney's been our supervisor of extracurricular activities for the past 4 years at Manalapan High School, and so he'll be moving along to the sister school as an assistant principal. We were fortunate to grab Rodney from Neptune several years ago, and I think it was a good move for you, Mr. Taylor. It's worked out well. So congratulations, Rodney.
Congratulations.
David Fusco, who was introduced by a member of the community, which has never happened before he's actually formally approved as well. Now we have a story to tell. But David is coming to us as an academic supervisor at Freehold Township High School. He's currently the STEM supervisor at Red Bank Regional, where he oversees their magnet programs there and has really awesome experience, has some prior experience at biotech as well, although we won't hold that against you, David. And we want to welcome David aboard to Freehold Township High School. So welcome, Mr. Fusco. Another in-district promotion, this is Kim Bramley. Kim is a learning disabilities teacher consultant at Colts Neck High School who's done a phenomenal job there the past couple years, so well of a job that she will be the new special ed supervisor at Howell High School. So Kim, and then we have Dr. Christina Donovan. Dr. Donovan is currently the well, I'm not quite sure what the formal title is because it's changed, but she's in charge of guidance for the Princeton Public Schools and has done a phenomenal job there for a number of years. And we're going to bring her aboard in Freehold Regional High School District as administrative supervisor in charge of guidance across the district. So Christina, congratulations. That's That's it. It's a long, big night for this, but we feel really,
We didn't break Mr. Moses' record.
nah, but I'm excited about the folks that are moving into new roles. So
Good job.
it'll be excellent.
Okay, so we did new business, we're gonna adjourn. May I have a motion to? Second. Oh, I did that one more. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Mr. Novak and Mrs. Lavin, I heard.
Lavin always gets it.
I heard Mrs. Lavin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So I didn't have room there.
Now I can say it, maybe we'll see it.
You adjourn.